Welcome back. We have a full slate of games on Saturday. The reason that I now have 4x4 on this board, because 16 game days, I'm ready. It does go all day, so I'm hoping that the power stays on. And I'm going to say this, it does seem like the winds settled down. That's the key thing. Once those Arctic outflows go away, it starts to warm up. And tomorrow it's supposed to be -3 here. Today it was -13 to -15 most of the day, so I'll take -3. It's still well below our average temperature, but I'll take it. 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, things get started with the New York Rangers and the Washington Capitals. These teams have split the first two meetings this year. December 9th, Washington wins 4-0. December 27th, the Rangers won 5-1. The fourth and final meeting will be on Sunday, January the 14th. So the Rangers have a 99% chance of making the playoffs. The Capitals, a 13% chance. Those percentages I got from The Athletic. 26, 12, and 2 is the record for the New York Rangers. They're 4, 5, and 1 in their last 10. And from December 13th until now, this is where I get the stats from, so the last month, Panarin, 13 games, 10 goals, 9 assists, 19 points. Goudreau, so I got one top scorer and one that isn't. Goudreau has no goals, 2 assists in 13 games. He's overdue for a goal. In terms of cup percentage chances, the Rangers have a 6% chance of winning the cup, again, according to The Athletic. The Capitals, 19, 14, and 6 overall. They're 3, 5, and 2 in their last 10 games. Over the last month, their highest scorer has been Ovechkin, 14 games, 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points. I wanted to talk about Protas for a moment. No goals, but 7 assists in 14 games for him, so he's due as well. And then 3 hours later at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. So I'll be able to review this game by itself. It's not 16 games at once, but it's going to feel like it for a while. So we have the Vancouver Canucks and the Buffalo Sabres. This game starting at the same time as this. This is just an amazing game we'll get to. But Vancouver Buffalo, their expansion brethren, came into the league together. 28-13 or 28-11 and 3 is the record for a Vancouver Canucks team that has a 99% chance of making the playoffs. I'm just letting that sink in. So Pettersson leads them in scoring over the last month. 13 games, 11 goals, 9 assists, 20 points. Pettersson, if you watch this, A, I'm really surprised, and B, you should sign a long-term extension in Vancouver. I think it'd do you some good. Kuzmenko, just the 3 goals in 10 games, and there's endless speculation about where he's going to get traded and when and how, but it definitely seems like Kuzmenko's likely going to get traded before the deadline. Buffalo has a 3% chance of making the playoffs, which is less than the Canucks Cup chances of 4%. Yeah, 4% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Don't tease me. Buffalo's 18, 20, and 4 overall. They're 5, 4, and 1 over their last 10 games. Mittelstadt leading them in scoring over the last month. 13 games, 5 goals, 8 assists, 13 points. Peyton Krebs, 13 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. Talented forward, just hasn't translated with points at this stage. Also at 4 Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, the San Jose Sharks and the Ottawa Senators. Everybody's going to want to know what happens in this one. We can call this the Celebrini Bowl. March the 9th will be the other meeting between these teams in San Jose. So don't worry. If you don't get enough of the action between them tomorrow, they will meet again. The Sharks have a 0% chance of making the playoffs. The Sens, a 1% chance. So you're telling me there's a chance. Neither of them showing as having odds of winning a Stanley Cup at this point. San Jose's 10, 29, and 3. And hey, look, they're 1 and 9 in their last 10. They're coming off that win against the Montreal Canadiens. Granlund leads them in scoring over the last month. 13 games, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points. Hoffman, just the 1 assist in 13 games over the last month. Hoffman's due for a goal. And look, it's the Sens. Hoffman has a history there. The Senators, 14 and 23 on the season. They're 3 and 7 over their last 10. Batherson leads them in scoring over the last month. 6 goals, 6 assists, 12 points in 14 games. Stützle stands out for just having the 1 goal. So 7 assists, 8 points in 14 games. I mean, the scoring's not bad, other than the fact that it's Tim Stützle and they're paying him to be a top-notch player, and it just hasn't been translating lately. And then 2 hours later at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. So these 2 games I will review before these games get started. I'm hoping it doesn't cut off some of the New Jersey Devils Florida Panthers game, but it might. Meaning that I wouldn't see the whole first period necessarily. So October 16th, the Florida Panthers beat New Jersey 4-3. These teams will meet again on March the 5th. New Jersey has a 49% chance of making the playoffs. Not a fan of those odds, but a 2% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Florida, 99% chance of making the playoffs and an 8% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Again, those numbers from The Athletic. New Jersey's 21-15-3 overall. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10. Their leading scorer over the last month is Jesper Bratt. 3 goals, 10 assists, 13 points in 13 games. Howla just has 2 goals in 13 games. Figure he might be due as well. He has 6 assists for 8 points in 13 games. Florida's 27-12-2. They're 9-1. They have won 9 in a row. Matthew Tkachuk leading them in scoring over the last month, 13 games, 7 goals, 13 assists, 20 points. Evan Rodriguez, he is a Swiss Army knife. He can play up and down the lineup, but not a lot of production from him recently. 13 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points over the last month. 7 Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, so we have 7 games starting at that time. It's not as bad as the 9 we had the other night, but it's close. So 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, Carolina and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is given a 78% chance of making the playoffs and a 6% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. The Canes, a 96% chance of making the playoffs and a 10% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. So their model really likes the Canes. The Penguins are 20-15-5 overall. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. Crosby leading him in scoring over the last month. 9 goals, 6 assists, 15 points in 13 games. And Jeff Carter, 2 goals and an assist for 3 points in 13 games. Carter's production not what it used to be, but he gets a goal here and there. Maybe he gets one against the Canes, who are 23-13-5 overall. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. Aho leading him in scoring over the last month. 13 games, 5 goals, 17 assists, 22 points. Brett Pesce just has 2 assists over 13 games in that same period. Then we have a 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, Seattle and Columbus. This is the first of 2 meetings. They'll meet again January 26th. Seattle has a 31% chance of making the playoffs. I don't make these odds, and I don't think that's correct. But anyways, the model doesn't like their odds of making the playoffs. I think Seattle probably gets in there. Columbus, 0% chance of making the playoffs. Not really a huge surprise there. Seattle's 18-14-9 overall. They're 8-0-2 in their last 10 games. Vince Dunn leading them in scoring over the last month. 11 games, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points. Brandon Tanev just has 1 goal over those same stretch of games. 4 assists for 5 points in 11 games. On the Columbus side, they're 13-20-9. They're 3-3-4 over their last 10, so technically 500, or they've only won 3 of their last 10. Johnny Gaudreau leading him in scoring over the last month. 12 games, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points. Again, do you want more from Johnny? Yes. Are we going to get it in Columbus? No idea. Probably not this year. Bemstrom, with just the 3 assists in 12 games. He's had some good scoring chances lately. Due for a goal as well. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between the LA Kings and the Detroit Red Wings. This is the second and final meeting. January the 4th, Detroit goes into LA and beats them in a shootout 4-3. We'll see how it goes in this one. LA still listed as a 95% chance of making the playoffs. We'll see. Detroit, 12% chance of making the playoffs for the Wings. Stanley Cup odds, 4% chance for the LA Kings there. The Kings are 20-10-8 overall, but it's been ugly lately. They're 2-4-4 in their last 10. Over the last month, Kopitar leading them in scoring with 4 goals, 8 assists for 12 points in 13 games. Grundstrom, just the 2 assists in 13 games for him. Detroit, 20-16-5 overall, 5-4-1 in their last 10 games. Patrick Kane's been their leading scorer over the last month, 13 games, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. Moritz Seider, no goals in the last month, so he's got 5 assists in 13 games. We'll see how it goes. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between the Oilers and the Montreal Canadiens. This is the first of 2 meetings. These teams know each other. March the 19th will be the second and final meeting between these teams. The Oilers have a 94% chance of making the playoffs, a 13% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. That's the highest number on the board. So the model likes them to win the Stanley Cup this year. Discuss amongst yourselves. Montreal has a 0% chance of making the playoffs. I did not make these odds. The Oilers 22-15-1 overall. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games. McDavid over the last month, 12 games, 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points. No surprise, he's their leading scorer. Bit of a surprise. Connor Brown still doesn't have a goal. He has 2 assists over the last month, 11 games played in that time. Montreal 17-18-6. They're 3-5-2 over their last 10. They should be fired up after losing to San Jose. Nick Suzuki leading him in scoring over the last month. 13 games, 4 goals, 8 assists for him. Jake Evans, no goals, 3 assists in 13 games over that same period. Sure, due for a goal? Yes, Evans qualifies. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between the Anaheim Ducks and the Tampa Bay Lightning. This looks like a very lopsided matchup on paper. March the 24th, these teams will meet again. Anaheim has a 0% chance of making the playoffs. Tampa Bay 51%. So Tampa Bay and New Jersey, the model seems to say these teams are going to be close by the end of the year, and could be the case. Stanley Cup, Tampa Bay has a 1% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. For the Anaheim Ducks, they're 14-26-1. They've had a 2-7-1 record over their last 10 games. Their leading scorer over that time has been Troy Terry. 11 games, 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points for Terry. I didn't write his name up there, but at least I remember who it was. Silverberg, 14 games and no points. Once you get older, it just starts to go. You think you wrote stuff down that you didn't. But yeah, Silverberg, no points in 14 games over the last month. He's got to start getting something, right? Tampa Bay, 21-17-5 overall. They're 6-4 over their last 10 games. Kucherov leading them in scoring over the last month. 13 games, 9 goals, 13 assists, 22 points. Pretty solid numbers. Connor Sherry, no goals, 5 assists over 12 games over the last month, and another one who is, due for a goal. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between the Colorado Avalanche and the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the first of 2 meetings. They'll meet again in Colorado on February 24th. This is a great test for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Colorado, a 99% chance of making the playoffs, a 6% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Toronto, a 97% chance of making the playoffs, but also a 6% chance of winning a Stanley Cup. Before everybody starts laughing, at some point in time, a Canadian team has to win a Stanley Cup, and why not Toronto? Colorado, 27-12-3 is their overall record. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10 games. McKinnon's led them in scoring over the last month. I could pause for all the surprised gasps, but who would be surprised? In 14 games, 10 goals, 18 assists, 28 points. He's been ridiculous. Officially, if you look up ridiculous in the dictionary, McKinnon's scoring is right there. Colton, 3 assists in 12 games. He's been all around the net the last few games. I think he's due as well. For Toronto, they're 21-10-8 overall. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10 games. Got their confidence up against California teams. We'll see how it works for them against Colorado. Nylanders led them in scoring over the last month. 13 games, 8 goals, 13 assists, 21 points. David Kampf, just the 1 assist over 12 games in that same time period. So maybe Kampf ends up getting one. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, the last of the 7 Eastern starts. Philadelphia and the Winnipeg Jets, the first of 2 meetings. They'll meet again February the 8th. Winnipeg has a 100% chance of making the playoffs, a 12% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. I'm as excited for that as anybody else. Philadelphia, 48% chance of making the playoffs. That number, I'm guessing, has dipped recently with their play. They're 22-14-6 overall. They're coming off the overtime win against Minnesota tonight. They're 4-3-3 in their last 10 games. Konechny, 14 games, 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points, has led them in scoring over that period, or over the last month. Ristolainen, just the goal with an assist, 2 points in 14 games. Feels like you should get more out of Ristolainen. Winnipeg, 28-9-4 overall, 9-0-1 over their last 10 games. Nick Ehlers, 14 games, 8 goals, 9 assists, 17 points to lead them in scoring over the last month. Barron, 14 games, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points for Morgan Barron. I don't have Barron on the board because he's not scoring. I have Barron on the board because he's one of my favorite bottom 6 players in the National Hockey League. And so I wanted to have him on the board to say, hey, good work. 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. We have 4 more games starting then, and then we have 1 7 o'clock start. So 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific start between the Dallas Stars and the Chicago Blackhawks. This is the third of 4 meetings. On December 29th, Dallas won 5-4 in overtime. On the 31st, they won 8-1. Both of those games were in Dallas, so these next 2 will be in Chicago. The second meeting in Chicago will be on April the 6th. Dallas has a 98% chance of being a playoff team, 9% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. Chicago, playoffs, 0% chance. Dallas, 24-12-5 is their overall number. 5-4-1 is their number over the last 10 games. Duchesne, 14 games in the last month, 6 goals, 11 assists, 17 points to lead Dallas in scoring. Wyatt Johnston had a goal tonight, but over the last month in 14 games, he has 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. Maybe that goal tonight's the start of a hot streak for him. Chicago, 12-28-2 is their overall record. 2-7-1 in their last 10. And again, as I've been mentioning, they've been playing some ugly hockey, but it works for them without Bedard. They're 1-2 without Bedard, but they've kept every game close. Dickinson's their leading scorer if you don't include Bedard over the last month. 14 games for Dickinson, 5 goals, 2 assists, 7 points. Donato, 14 games, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. Feels like he might be due for a bit of a breakout. 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific start between Arizona and Minnesota. First of 4 meetings, so these teams could have an effect on whether or not the other one makes the playoffs. They'll meet again February 14th, March the 7th, and March the 12th. Arizona has a 5% chance of making the playoffs. Apologies to Coyotes fans, that feels low. Minnesota has a 28% chance of making the playoffs, which feels high considering their records. Arizona 20-18-2 overall. I don't question the models. I just think it's interesting to see what the models come up with. But 20-18-2 record for Arizona. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Over the last month, Keller's been their highest scorer. 12 games, 6 goals, 4 assists, 12 points. Carcone's luck around the net has kind of worn off. Over the last month, he has 2 assists in 12 games. On the Minnesota side, they're 17-19-5. They're 3-6-1 over their last 10, and they lost in overtime tonight. Boldy leading him in scoring over the last month. 15 games, 8 goals, 3 assists, 11 points. Maroon, he was scoring early in the year. It's gone. 15 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. I mean, you expect that with Maroon. You're still kind of rooting for him to get some more points, but who knows? Maybe he'll start putting the puck in the net again now that I got him on the board. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific start between the New York Islanders and the Nashville Predators. First of 2 meetings. They'll meet again on April the 6th. The Islanders have 56% chance of making the playoffs. Nashville, 28% chance of making the playoffs. And again, Nashville's playing well. They're the number 2 wild card right now, I believe, between them and Edmonton. I think they're the number 2, just on the tiebreaker. The Islanders, 19-12-10 is their overall record. They're 4-4-2 over their last 10 games. They also have a 1% chance of winning the Stanley Cup, whereas Nashville does not show us having a percentage of a chance. Barzal, 14 games, 3 goals, 13 assists, 16 points. Their leading scorer over the last month. Anders Lee, scoring is not where it should be. 14 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, 7 points. He's generating opportunities, so he's due for a couple. Nashville, 23-18-1 overall, coming off the win against Dallas tonight. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. Nyquist, their leading scorer over the last month, 13 games, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. Evangelista, 13 games, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. You watch Nashville games, you'd think his scoring would be a little bit more. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Yep, I'm wearing a Boston jersey for this. I feel like they've lost 3 in a row in extra time. I'll wear their jersey. We'll see if it helps. They're in against the St. Louis Blues. The first of 2 meetings. They'll meet again in Boston on March the 11th. The Bruins have a 99% chance of making the playoffs. They have an 8% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. So let's tally this up. 8%, 9%, that's 17%, 4%. 21% chance of a team I cheer for winning the Stanley Cup this year, according to the Athletic stats. On the St. Louis side, they have a 4% chance of making the playoffs. Again, apologies to the Blues fans. 24-8-9 is the record for the Boston Bruins. They're 5-2-3 over their last 10, and those 3 in that third column, their most recent 3 games. Pastrnak, 15 games, 9 goals, 9 assists, 18 points. Their leading scorer, and their absolutely most dangerous threat every game. And over the last month, he's shown that still. Heinen, just the 1 goal with 4 assists for 5 points in 15 games. Maybe he's due. On the St. Louis side, they're 21-18-1. They're coming off that pretty inspired victory over the Rangers. We'll see what they can do for an encore. They're 6-4 over their last 10. Thomas is their leading scorer over the last month. 12 games, 6 goals, 10 assists, 16 points. Oscar Sundqvist, just the 3 assists in 12 games. Let's get him a goal. 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. The only game starting at 7 o'clock again, and same as on Thursday. This time it's Calgary and Vegas. Last time it was Boston and Vegas, of course. This is the third of 4 meetings, and based on the first 2 meetings, tomorrow night's going to overtime, which wouldn't surprise me. So November 27th, Calgary wins in overtime 2-1. On December 12th, Vegas won in overtime 5-4. The 4th and final meeting between these teams will be on March the 14th. The Flames are 19-18-5. They have a 29% chance of making the playoffs and a 1% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. It's one of these things that's weird. So it's a higher percentage chance Seattle makes the playoffs, but the model says Calgary has a better chance of winning the Stanley Cup. I like that. So Calgary 19-18-5. I like it because it's unpredictable and it's fun to go through all that. 19-18-5 record for the Flames. They're 6-4 over their last 10. Coleman, their leading scorer over the last month, 13 games, 10 goals, 6 assists, 16 points. I have to talk about Coleman every time I talk about the Flames. Pospisil, 13 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. He's due for a big game. Vegas, 24-13-5 is their overall record. They are 3-7 in their last 10, but they're coming off of an overtime victory over Boston. Eichel, over the last month, 12 games, 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points. Yeah, 20 games over the last month. But 11 points in 12 games for Eichel to lead them in scoring over that time. Stevenson really stands out amongst the struggling players. He's an unrestricted free agent in July. He only has 1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points in 12 games. So Vegas has a 90% chance of making the playoffs, a 3% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. and we'll see how it all turns out. Let me know your winners in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I really wanted to supersize this, so it's a bit longer than the previews normally are. There's 16 games, all 32 teams. We officially reach the halfway mark of the season tomorrow during all this mess. So why not get into discussions of playoff probabilities, Stanley Cup probabilities, and don't be surprised when that's a little more prominent in the previews going forward. Thank you guys, though, for all your support as always. Let me know your winners in the comment section below. Enjoy the hockey. I will do my best to keep up and hope the lights stay on. But don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already either, because I track that. I don't, but I'll just say I do. And then, you could get an email from me. Notice you watched the video and you didn't subscribe. Why didn't you subscribe? That's not a thing. There's no data that tells me who watched my videos and didn't subscribe. But thank you for those that have, and for those that haven't, that's fine too. I will talk to you again soon.